So hello everyone, welcome to recitation 7, and the topic for today's recitation is going to be JavaScript event-driven programming. Um, Last week, that is the week 6, we started with our JavaScript series. We just learned about the basic introduction stuff about JavaScript. There was this assignment posted on Canvas, and before that, let me know how was your exam one. I hope you guys are able to view all of your grades in your Canvas. I'm done grading the assignments from 2 to 4. All of them are graded, and the remaining assignments like the 5 and 6, I'm just working on it, and I think that should be done by the end of this week. But regarding exam 1 and also the gradings, if you have any kind of questions, concern or queries or doubts, it would be better to just join the office hours this week or the lab support hours, rather than just emailing me and just explaining your issue, because it becomes very difficult for me to just handle or take the doubts via email, because there are a lot of students a good number of students are just email me during regarding the issue. So if you would rather just come during my office hours or lab support hours in person or virtually, it becomes easier for me to just assist you regarding your queries regarding it can be anything like your grades, or you feel like you wanted if the grades are deducted unnecessarily, stuff like that, right? So make sure you just check your grades over here. And I think, yeah, overall average is decent for the exam 1. I think only few of the students were able to score above 55, and good, congrats to those who were able to score above 55, and those who were able to score above 40, 45. I think you guys are in a decent spot, but still I would encourage and suggest all of you to work really more hard for the upcoming exams and assignments, because from this week, as I mentioned last week also, whenever we are starting with the JavaScript series, it's going to be a little more difficult than the previous weeks, right? Then during the initial beginning weeks, we learn about the HTML, CSS, all the stuff. That's fine, but now the level is going to be one notch higher, right? So you gotta work more hard and work on your grades, assignments. See, each and every small things do count as part of your overall total grades, right? For example, the deadline of the assignments, right? If you're just missing it, so there's just a lack of seriousness, right? If you are careless in that thing, then no one can help you, right? For example, while submitting assignments also, I saw some of the assignments were not fully submitted in the zip file which you guys are submitting. Let's, for example, if you take assignment number 4, there are a couple of HTML files along with the image files and the CSS file, right? So I think some of you were not some of you forgot to just include the CSS file, which is very essential, right? Because without that, I will not be able to see the stylings applied in your final result, right? So I would it becomes difficult for me to just grade it according to rubrics if that particular file is missing. So all these are very small silly mistakes which might just cost you cost the deduction of the points, yet according to the final result of your grades. So make sure you just take care of all the small things and work best for your upcoming exams. And I think there would be a list of the students coming soon. You would be informed via your professor or by me in next week, that we have been categorizing students for 3 different categories. There are warning grades or warning category students that would be assigned, like W1, W3, and W3. Those students who fall under some kind of category, or whose grades are poor, right? They need to cope up and work more harder. So I think as of now, I don't want to scare you, but from my end, it's just that I want to tell you that do come to lab support hours or office hours, either for your professor or by or my lab support hours or office hours. Utilize this facility to the best of itself. Don't just wait till the last date of the due date of the assignment. Just come and just feel free to just ask questions, because that would help you to just cope up and perform better and take the best from this course, right? So I think, yeah, that was just the announcement regarding the grades and your assignments. And what else? I think, yeah, in your Canvas, yeah, I think, yeah, we can just without wasting further time, let's just start. Let's just get started with our today's recitation topic. So as you guys know, that like in today's recitation, or this week's our topic for recitation number 7 is JavaScript event-driven programming. Now, like obviously a lot of you guys would not be familiar with this word of event-driven programming, right? Or like especially those who are coming from a non-CS background. So let's just quickly go through the agenda of what we are going to study for today, and let's just deep dive into the basic layman definitions of event-driven programming and more about JavaScripts. We are going to learn about different elements today, right? And we'll just perform a quick project, hands-on project, which help you to just learn more things. So first things first, the agenda is understanding event-driven programming. Of course, like we'll just see what is event-driven programming, why do we need it, like always, right? Understanding the applications is always the key. Secondly, we are going to create a small project involving different kind of tasks, like we are going to build a graphical user interface, introducing text box, radio buttons, and buttons, and at the end, performing event-driven calculations on our input fields. So I think, yeah, the project which we are going to work today on in this recitation is very exciting. We're just going to work live, and we are going to create a actual form. So I hope, like, again, like always, I would strongly suggest, if you are watching this recitation lecture, then just like get the files and just perform the code simultaneously with me. So it would just help you to grab a better understanding, and it would be fun at the same time, right? So regarding the files, I think by the time you're watching this video, you would be able to find each and every resources over here in our canvas, like always in the files. And if you go on and click 00 recitation information folder, there you will find a folder of my name called Surjag. And in this folder, there's another folder called recitation 7. So over here, you would find all the resources for this particular recitation, including the presentations, the code snippets, and everything which we are going to cover into this recitation. So without wasting time, let's just get started with our main actual topic. Okay. So what is event-driven programming? Event-driven programming is a paradigm of programming where the flow of the program is determined by events such as user actions. Nice, awesome. So this is the generic definition, but let's just look at a way more simpler and layman definition of what actually event-driven programming is, right? So below that, there's written that the program waits for specific things, which are nothing but events, to happen or to occur, and then responds to them. So like from this, we understand that there's some kind of program or implementation which has a waiting time for the events to occur, and then it just responds to them. For example, let us look at the example over here. It says, wait for a user to click on a button or type something. Okay, so from this, we understand that there's some kind of thing going on wherein the user just wait for some kind of functionality to happen, and then it can just act accordingly, right? So notice that the word events over here, let us just understand what actually events are in the world of HTML and JavaScript, right? So again, let me just grab the definition over here in our W3 Schools website. It says that HTML events are things that happen to HTML elements. Okay, when JavaScript is used in HTML pages, JavaScript can react on these events. Okay, so I want you guys to just recollect what we learned in our week 6, that is the last week's recitation, wherein we just got the introduction of JavaScript. Do you guys remember the example which we are just taking every time whenever we are talking about all the three things combined together, right? HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Yes, the human skeleton example, right? Where's the role of JavaScript needed? Like, for example, we learned that, like, if there's a human being or the skeleton, right? So the basic foundation or the building blocks is created with the help of HTML. All the appearances, the visual look and everything, like, is because of the CSS. But now, for me, to give some kind of life or functionality to that human being, we need JavaScript. And in our last week's recitation tutorial, also we saw the example of how powerful JavaScript is, right? We saw that example of that light bulb over here, this one, right? Turn on the light, turn off the light. It just simply changes the content of the web page, right? So with the help of JavaScript, we are able to achieve that functionality that we can just change the output or the content of the web page. So talking about the events, it says that an HTML event can be something the browser does or something a user does. Okay, here are some examples of HTML events. An HTML web page has finished loading. Okay, an HTML input field was changed, an HTML button was clicked. So if I want to give a very good and common example for the functionality of events, I would say, like, I'm sure like all of you might have created a Facebook account like in the past, right? So for the first time, whenever you guys are creating your Facebook account, if you're a new user, you would just go on and sign up your details, right? When you fill in your details, and when you guys are done filling your details, the button which says sign up, you press that button, you click that button, right? So what happens after that? You have your account and you can just log in and you can just use your main Facebook page. Exactly. So this is the implementation or like something which is needed wherein events come into the picture, right? If there's a button and we click on it, so user is performing some kind of operation. For example, if we take this example over here and I click on try it yourself, there's this button, right? The time is, which says the time is, right? So by the name, it says like, it should be like, if I click this button, it should be just, it should just give me the current time, right? Over here, don't worry about the syntax over here. This is the HTML only. But the thing which you see over here inside the double quotes, the blue color thing, that's the JavaScript code, right? That goes inside the attribute called onClick. Now, don't worry about this attribute also. We are going to learn each and every attributes which come with the different kind of elements. But for now, just focus on the implementation of this particular output. If I click on this button, I'll get the output over here, right? Which just displays the current time, which is 7:35, like exactly. If I click on run again and click on this, it will give me the current output of the current time, right? So in this way, we are asking the user to just do some kind of thing with this button or be it anything. And in that way, we are able to see the change in the content of our web page, right? So this thing we are able to achieve with the help of JavaScript. So I think you guys understood some kind of thing about events and event-driven programming, which is a part of JavaScript with the help of this example. Like, don't worry about this partially. We are going to look at like dive much more deeper during our small project, which we are going to create in this recitation, right? So let's just look at another example. JavaScript HTML events. Click the button to display the date. Okay, if I click this button, it will just display the date, Tuesday, October 17th. So this is the script over here wherein we are creating a function and we are just targeting and writing the code, JavaScript code for that particular button over here. This thing which you see, there's a function which we are just passing. Now, again, don't worry about functions and all those things, like there's a later part of our course, but for now, I just wanted to show you the implementation and the application to you guys, right? So coming back to our slides, this is something, I think the definition is clear. While learning or doing it hands-on, you guys would be able to get more properly, right? So first things first, I want you guys to just install the shell.html file, which is right there inside the Recitation7 folder. So if you guys open up the shell.html file, and for example, let me just open it over here. I'll just open up this folder in my VS Code. I'm sure you guys know this shortcut. If you still don't know, then you can use it. It's always helpful. Okay, awesome. Let me just grab my VS Code. Cool. I'll just zoom this a little bit so that it's easier for you guys to just read the stuff. Awesome. This is the shell.html over here. This is the basic template which I've provided, and just open up in your VS Code or any editor which you guys are using. After that, it says, okay, let's just understand a few foundation building blocks of new HTML elements, right? Which we are not familiar earlier. So first thing is a text box. Now, what is a text box? Obviously, as the name suggests, it's just a basic text entry field or entity which in which the user can enter any kind of data, right? Over here in the image, which you as you can see, display text boxes. Ignore this. This is just our header statement. But this thing, small rectangular thing, which you see, it is a text box, right? You guys can see in this particular thing in various websites or as part of your forms, right? Wherein you just have to put your data. So this particular thing is created with the help of text box. And how do we do it? So in HTML, there's an element called input, and inside that there's a property or attribute which comes with an attribute called type. And we say that, hey, inside the input, mention the type as text, so that it will just come up with a text box, and we are giving an ID to this particular thing. Again, if you guys remember, we studied about IDs and classes in our week 4 when we just covered the advanced CSS part, right? So I hope you guys are aware between the differences between the IDs and classes and why do we need them, right? If not, then just I would suggest you to just go and recollect those things. But just briefly, IDs are just the unique values which are associated or given to the elements, and it should be unique in the entire HTML document, right? And they are used to just fetch or target that particular element while giving the JavaScript functionality that we are gonna see it in our project, which we will work on in some time. But for now, this is just the basic implementation and the code to create text box. So what I want you guys to just do is, let me just copy this stuff and put it over here. First things first, let me write a header which says, welcome to recitation 7. Awesome. Let me just click on go live and see the output. Okay, it's working. So over here, if I paste the stuff right over here and save the file, there's a text box over here, right? So you guys can just actually just directly copy the code and paste it in your code, so it would just work it as it is, right? After that, there's a button. Okay, so now what is a button? As the name suggests, is again entity or an element in HTML, which just looks like this, just as a button. And what is its functionality? Obviously, if there is a button, it should have a functionality of clicking element, right? It should be clickable. Always, like if there's a button, we should be able to click the button and get the desired output or the results, right? So how do we write or create a button in HTML? So there's an element called button, which comes with the ID attribute and on click, which is very important over here, because what would be the use of a button if there's no on click functionality, right? Obviously, we want to perform some kind of operations if the user clicks on the button. So it always comes with an on click attribute. And here inside this double quotes over here, there we will put our JavaScript code, and we will write like, if the user presses on this button, what we actually want to do or change in the content. Just as the example which you saw on W3 schools, if I press that button, it was able to just fetch and give me the output in the form of the current time, right? So same thing over here. And I think there's another way of creating a button by simply using the input element, just as how we used to create the text box. Inside that, I think you just have to give the type as button, and same thing. Yeah, the syntax remains the same, but you can create it with this way also. And here's the code to create the button. So let me just copy the code and paste it in my editor. Okay. Awesome. Let me just view the output. Okay, so here's a button, right? This is a text field or the text input text box. This is a button, right? And the last one should be the radio button. Yes, I think you guys have seen something like this in various forms or somewhere in the websites, right? So this options are called radio buttons. They are similar to buttons, but has different functionality, right? So here, if you look at the core of how to create a radio button, again, it says that we use the input element, but again, here the type is a radio, right? In case of text input, it's called text. In buttons, we can use button, or we can just simply directly create it with the help of the button element. But in case of radio buttons, we just directly mention the type as radio. It comes of several other attributes like call ID, on click, and name. Now, notice that as we are moving ahead with our JavaScript series, different kind of attributes are coming into the picture, right? Earlier we were just dealing with the HTML elements, right? And in the CSS we were just dealing with IDs and classes. But now notice that there's a name attribute, there's an ID, there's an on click, something like that, right? In our like input tag over here. So there are a lot of things going on. So all these are because we are gonna introduce our JavaScript code and we want to work and achieve the function, that kind of functionality on this particular input elements, right? So we are going to look in detail about the meaning and the need of all these attributes, the ID, what is name, what is on click, while we work hands-on in our small project, right, in a while. So just have some kind of patience, but for now just understand how to create the basic implementation of radio buttons and the text input field, right? So let me just copy this code again over here and paste it over here. Awesome. So we should have a radio. Okay, let me just put a break after this. How about one more break? Looks clean, right? So this is a radio button, right? Radio button, and this should be a normal button, let's say. Awesome. This is a button. These are radio buttons, right? So this is how you are able to just create this all these elements with the help of HTML. And note that till now we have not introduced JavaScript at all. And I'm also going to share this particular file, which is called rec07-initial_gui.html, right? So make sure you guys download and open this file in your browser also. That's for our project, and we are gonna open up in a while. But before that, I think, yeah, yes. So let's just directly come to our project, which is about a form. So let's just read the problem statement first. So it says that parallel motors cord. Okay, we will be creating a form for Parallex Motors. Okay, Parallex Motors has closed their previous fiscal year and they want to calculate the total sales for their previous year as well as the expected sales for the current year by using an HTML form. Awesome. So I think first things first, I know like this is not a live or interacting class, but for those who are majoring into finance, accounting, or having a minor in that, you guys, for you, it would be interesting to work on this problem statement because it's related to the accounting stuff, right? So I think, yeah, it's a fun problem, and we are going to learn a lot about JavaScript, how to introduce and put our JavaScript code into our HTML code, and how to just create a form like this. So you would be able to create it by the end of this recitation. And one more thing, like till now, like while just using only CSS and HTML, we couldn't give any kind of live to our code or the end project, right? But with the help of JavaScript, for example, you guys can create your own calculator. You guys can create a game called tic-tac-toe or something like that, right? So that's the power of all three together. And now the actual fun will begin once we are diving deep into the JavaScript series, right? So yeah. So according to problem statement, I think it's clear. There's a form which we have to create, which includes several fields. So I want you guys to pause this video now and just think that how many text input fields are there in this form, right? And how many buttons are there and how many radio buttons are there. Just pause this video and think of the answer. Okay. So for those who said that, okay, there are 4 text fields, that's the correct answer, right? The first one is the Eastern Division, second one is the Western Division, and the third one is this one, the previous year's total sales. The fourth one should be the last one, which says current year expected sales, right? All these 4 are the text input fields. And this one, which you see over here, that's a button, right? Obviously, which says calculate previous year total. After that, all this like these 2 tiny little things which you see, they are the radio buttons, which says high and low, right? So I think, yeah, let's just see the requirements of the form in a more detailed manner so that you guys would be able to have a good understanding about how like we should start the approach to just solve the code, right? So here the form requirement says that the sales for the Eastern and Western divisions will be entered manually by the sales manager. Awesome. So what does this mean? Over here, it says that the user or the sales manager, once the form is created, will enter the values of Eastern division and the Western division in this text field manually. So, and the values are in obviously in numbers, but they are in millions. So let's say I'm the sales manager and I want to enter, let's say 4 millions for Eastern division and 6 millions for Western division, right? So it will just he or she will just enter the values over here, and let's just look further what it's saying. And it says the total sales for the year should be displayed by clicking on the calculate previous year total. Awesome. So once the user okay, so once the user inputs the values over here, and after that, if the user clicks on this button, then the previous year total sales, that particular output of the operation performed, should be displayed over here. So notice that these two text input fields are used to take the input from the user, whereas this one and the fourth one, the last one, text input fields, are used to show the output to the end user, right? Here we are just taking the input, but here we are not going to take any kind of input, but we want to show the output, right? Over here, if you just see the problem statement, they have asked us that has closed their previous year fiscal year, and they want to calculate the total sales for their previous year as well as the expected sales for the current year over here. So we're gonna display and show two results at the end to the end user, right? Let's just look what it says like ahead. Yeah, radio boxes. So regarding the radio boxes, there are two radio buttons, right? High and low. So the high radio box, expected sales increase of 30% for the current year, and for the low radio box, it says expected sales increase of 10% for the current year. Okay, not bad, like straightforward. Like it's just say that, okay, if the user or the sales manager selects the high radio box, just compute it according to the, while calculating the current year's expected sales, just take into account this thing, and there's a formula for this wherein just will use or take into consideration the 30% amount for the expected sales increase, right? And wherein if the case is the low, we'll just take 10%, right? So that we'll see like while implementing the actual code and the formula which is for that, right? And after that, once we are done getting all the details and calculating the previous year total, we say that current year expected sales, we just have to calculate that final value, right? So it's calculated and displayed when the sales manager selects one of the radio boxes. Obviously, for the above two input fields, and we were able to calculate the previous year total sales. But ahead, if you want to calculate the current year expected sales, the user need to select any one of the radio button fields, and then we would be able to get the final indented output, right? So these are just about the form requirements, and this is the code snippet of that particular form which you guys can see. So here, like you guys can refer this, but there are small minor changes in this code wherein the IDs, the name of the ID is a little different. So what I suggest is go to your Canvas page again in this folder and download the file, this one, initial_gui.com. It would look something like this. So let me just open this file in the browser and let's just see the output for this. Whoa, awesome. Seems like our form is ready, right? No. Let's just try. If I enter value 4, that is 4 millions for Eastern division, and Western division, let's say I enter 6, and I click on calculate previous year total. What do you guys think? Will it show me the output? Let's just quickly review it, right? I'm clicking on the button. Notice that it's clickable, but I'm not getting any kind of output. Why? Because this code has no life. It's dead. We need to incorporate or add JavaScript into this code in order to achieve that functionality of clickability in the button or errors like in the radio buttons, in order to see the change in the content in our web page, right? That is where, for that purpose, we are going to use JavaScript, and that's the indented or actual use for or learning for today's recitation, right? So let's just quickly go through this code over here. I'm sure like all like you guys would be able to understand it now, because we went through the basics of how to create a text box or a button or a radio button, right? So first things first, this is our basic boiler template of HTML. Here I've just included CSS styling. Now again, just pause the video and think, what kind of CSS styling is this? Is it internal, is it inline, or external? Awesome. For those who said it's internal, awesome, good going, obviously, because external, like we need an external CSS file. And in inline, what if I just add a style over here by adding an attribute called style? And if I do add the style in this manner, that's called inline CSS styling. But here we are just creating the styling inside our head, between the head elements, right? So here, this form of styling is called the internal CSS styling. And again, I, like always, I'll just focus and emphasize on this a lot. Just try a habit of writing good amount of comments. I noticed that like while grading the assignments from 2 to 4, I hardly found some students who are writing the comments in the code, right? Obviously, I'm not talking about the mandatory comments which are asked you in the instruction manual, like just write your section number, your name, not all those stuff. I'm saying that in the actual code over here, there were like hardly few of them who were writing the comments just to provide a good code readability to the end user, to the one who's grading, and it's always a good practice, right? So just write, like you can write anything. Like for example, here, let me just write internal CSS styling. It can be anything, right? Over this, like this. So what I'm saying that, okay, for the whole body, just make the background color as yellow, and the font size for the paragraph elements should be 20 pixels. That's it, simple as that. Not much funky or fancy styling which we are like gonna do over here, but this is the output which is right in front of you guys, right? So over here, there are header elements. Okay, there is a paragraph, but inside that paragraph, notice that over here, this is a paragraph called Eastern Division. Besides that, we have our text box input field over here. So we created that with the help of input element, which has a type of text right over here, and an ID called Eastern, and has another attribute or attribute called onChange. Now, don't worry about this. We are gonna look in a while learning about how to add the JavaScript to the code, right? Just I think you guys would be like it should be easier for you guys to just understand how this basic version of the form is created without using JavaScript till now, right? This is again the second input. Let me just write the comment if you want. Then first input box, simple, right? Again, second input box. This is a button. Okay, after that, there comes our third input box, and then our radio buttons, and then comes our last fourth input box. Make sense? So in this way, like it's always a good habit, and overall the code remains very organized and structured. You know, like what things are present over here, because obviously, see, this is just like less than 50 lines of code, but wherein if in a case where you are working on a big code base where there are lots of HTML files and the code length is like more than 200 300 lines, so for those in those scenarios, it would help you and the other developers who are collaborating on that project to just understand the stuff. Like, so it's always a good habit to write comments, right? So let's just now understand and use our JavaScript. So in our slides, okay, here are some important notes again in terms of the code which we are using, right? So first things first, ID entries should have some kind of meaningful names. Okay, they are unique identifiers and link the label with the button. As I mentioned, right? While noticing the difference between IDs and classes, IDs are very unique and they are just like each and every ID, it's unique in its own self. Like each HTML document would have just one unique ID for that particular element, HTML element. So what does this mean? IDs entries should have a meaningful names. For example, over here, notice that for this particular input box, there is an ID which we have created. It says Eastern. Now over here, instead of Eastern, I can write something called as burgers. For example, let's say I can write anything I want, right? But obviously, will it make any sense? We just have to create the naming convention in a way it becomes easier for you to understand that, okay, if it's Eastern, then it's, I mean, for example, let me just give you a very layman example. If you are working on your assignment, right? Let's say you worked on your last week's 6 assignment, which is called assignment number 6. So notice that while reading the instruction manual, it says that you have to rename your assignment file, the final zip folder or the file in a particular way. There's a naming convention, right? It can be, let's say, um, section number underscore assignment 6 or your net ID underscore assignment 6, anything. Just for example, let's take this thing as an example. So why do we need that? You can save your file and name it anything, right? You can name it as burgers.html, though it doesn't have any kind of relation to that thing, right? But still, we follow some kind of naming convention, right? So that same thing applies over here in the world of IDs. Whenever we are assigning IDs, it's always important to just name it appropriately, which is sensible enough, so that whenever we are, like, suppose, let's say over here, there are IDs for this particular things, right? There are lots of IDs over here. So each and every name is appropriate to that particular element, right? So if you are targeting and using those elements, it would be easier for you to just remember and recollect, okay, if I say Eastern, it would be obviously that ID is given to the input box field for the Eastern division, right? So in that way, it's always a good practice to just name the convention accordingly for the IDs. Secondly, name entries in the radio buttons section are the same. Okay, now what is this thing which is given as an attribute in the radio buttons element, right? We'll just look at that also. It says that the name attribute specifies the name of an element. The name attribute is used to reference elements in a JavaScript or to reference form data after a form is submitted. Okay. Note, only form elements with a name attribute will have their values passed when submitting a form. And just read this thing carefully with the last sentence, which says the radio buttons work together. When one is clicked on, the other radio buttons with the same name are unchecked. Now, what does this mean? For example, over here in our form, there are 2 radio buttons, right? So in a case where, like, see, these 2 radio buttons are grouped or bunched together, right? Like, I'm not saying that, hey, just write a radio button over here after this, between these 2 text inbox field, which says hi, and I want the other radio button over here, somewhere over here. No, we are not writing those or showing those radio buttons differently, right? They are the part of a group, right? And there are cases wherein we just want to select, obviously, just one value out of all the multiple options. For example, over here, the end user cannot select both high or low. It doesn't make sense. How can it just compute the end result of current year expect sales, right? We just want the user to select any one value over here. So if you look into the code for the radio buttons, it says name equal to estimate, and over here is the same thing, name equal to estimate. If these 2 things are different, then we won't be able to achieve the functionality of this thing. Like when one radio button is clicked on, the other radio buttons with the same name are unchecked. So in order to achieve this functionality, that if the user can only select one radio button and the rest or the remaining radio buttons will remain unchecked or they won't be taken into the consideration, we use the name attribute and just give the same value to all those radio buttons, right? So I think this thing is clear regarding the name and the ID attributes in our input elements, right? So let's just start with our JavaScript now. I think yeah, I think we did cover all the basic stuff of creating the form with the help of HTML and CSS. So first things first, let's just understand how we are gonna work on our JavaScript for this particular button functionality, right? So once the form is ready, the sales manager or the end user would write the values for Eastern Division and the Western Division, correct? Right. As I mentioned over here, if I write the value as 4, that is 4 millions for Eastern Division and 6 millions on Western Division. And once the user click on calculate previous year total button over here, there should be some kind of change in the content over here. There should be some kind of value that should be displayed over here in this text box field, which says previous year's total sale, right? So how to do that, right? Over here, it says that, okay, now it's time to calculate the previous year total sales. So there's this code in front of you, and this is a JavaScript code. It says enter the code on the on-click section of the calculate previous year total button. Over here, do you see this thing? Calculate previous year total button. Inside that, there's an attribute called on-click. So over here, in this double quotes, we have to write the entire code of our JavaScript over here, right? The same code. Awesome. So let's just understand the JavaScript code. First things first. We say where total previous year equal to number of Eastern dot value plus number of Western dot value. Okay. I'm sure like this is something different for you guys, right? Let's just understand each and every meaning, like the meaning of each and every word over here. I'm saying where total previous year. So what is the meaning of where total previous year? Like in the last recitation, where we just use the basics of JavaScript, we learned about declaring and creating the variables, right? There are different methods and keywords used to create or declare variables. One such is where. Other two are like, can anyone just pause and think of the other two ways or methods to create variables? Yes, let, we can use let, we can use const. Obviously, it has different kind of purposes, but here I'm using the where keyword to create the variable, and the variable name is total prev year. One more thing, while creating the name of the variables, look at the convention over here. I think this is called, I think there are different kind of conventions. One such is camel case convention. Over here, notice that if a variable consists of different words, we don't include a space sign over here. Total space prev over here. I cannot write the name of the variable like total space prev space sales, something like this, right? Obviously, we should not have spaces over here in the name of our variables. It should be a combined string. One such method is including underscores to just separate your words. One such method is to just write your word and like just the first initial alphabet of each and every word in the capital form, like this. So we can create variables in different kind of naming conventions. You can follow like whatever you want. Let's just keep it like this for now over here. So this is the name of the variable, and I'm saying that, hey, okay, so first things first, do you guys remember wherein we worked on our assignment number 5 in week 5 for pseudocode, right, and flowcharts? So in that, we did the JavaScript functionality code for our pseudocode, right? So on js.do platform. So over there, notice that whenever the user enters the value by using the word or the keyword prompt, right? We use the prompt keyword to take the input from the users. He or she were able to enter the values for the amount or the price of burgers and pizza. Do you guys remember that example, right? So what happens is that naturally, by default, the input is in the form of strings. Now, what is strings? So last week also, like, we covered this thing by understanding the different data types which comes with each programming languages, right? So JavaScript also have different kind of data types. If we just have a look on here in W3, I think JavaScript data types, it says there are 8 data types in JavaScript: string, number, big int, boolean. Boolean values are just true and false, right? null, symbol, object. Don't worry about this, but just if you focus on string and number. So numbers we know, right? Integers or any kind of numbers. But how about string? String is just basically a collection of characters, right? Let's say I just want to just store my name into a variable called s, right? So what's that? What's the type of that variable s gonna be? It's a string, right? And how do we just write a or create a variable which has a type string? I say var s, and I open up the double quotes, and inside that I just write my own name like this, something like this, right? We write a double quotes. Awesome. So by default, whenever you take something from as an input, its default data type is a string. So we need to convert it into a data type called number, because here we are dealing with numbers, right? Are you guys getting it? Understand that we cannot perform the addition operations of two strings. For example, I cannot say that, let's say my first name is Sarjak and my last name is Manyar. I cannot say what is Sarjak plus Manyar, right? So same thing, if the number or the input values are in string, it would not, if I think it would give some kind of error. It's always a better practice to just convert those particular input values in the number format and just perform the required operation. Here we are just adding the two values. And this thing, what we are doing is called typecasting. In the world of programming, we call it as typecasting. We are just typecasting the value for these two input fields which we got from the user into the type number, right? So this is how we just typecast the values. Over here, next thing, what we are doing is that, notice that this thing eastern.value and western.value. What is this thing? Have you guys seen the word eastern and western in our code? Yes or no? Over here, if I open up the VS Code application, notice that the ID which we gave to our input fields for eastern and western division, it has the name eastern and western. Yes. So now you guys would be able to understand and mark the difference, that where and why we need to create the IDs, right? In order to use this particular input element and fetch the details or fetch the data which the user have entered in that text box, we will target and use that input element with the help of ID. Like, or why, or how else we are going to use that particular element? So we are saying that, hey, take the input or take the HTML element which has an element ID, called Eastern, and dot value is simply, we are saying that take its value, the value which the user has entered, right? Same thing over here, Western dot value, and we are just simply adding the two values over here and storing inside a variable called total prev year, right? Same things, just it's mentioned over here. The first statement adds up the numbers entered on the Western and Eastern text boxes. The IDs of those boxes is used to access their values. So this is the significance of creating IDs to each and every element, and that should be unique, right? Secondly, the second statement assigns the total calculated to the value property of the previous year total sales text box. It also pushes the result onto the text box mentioned. Okay, so what we are doing here is we are saying that, okay, sales previous year dot value equal to total previous year. So this is the value which we got from here over here, right? Or let's say the user entered 4 for Eastern value and 6 for Western value, right? So 4 plus 6 sums up to 10. So let's say the total value for the total previous year variable currently is 10. And we are saying that take that value and put it over here, assign it to this sales previous year dot value. Now my question over here is that what is sales previous year dot value? Just pause this video and think about, like, just think and try to answer, like, what exactly is sales previous year, what it should be. Over here, Eastern dot value, Eastern is the ID, right? Western dot value, Western is the ID, right? So sales previous year should be an ID, right? But for what or which element? Do we have any element with an ID called sales previous years? Notice our third input box, it has an ID called sales previous year, right? So we are saying that, okay, now we want to target this particular input box and say that, hey, whatever value we have inside our total year variable, which is 10, for example, currently, I want that value to be displayed in this particular text field box having an ID sales previous year, right? And dot value obviously will take that value and push it into the web browser in the form of output. Again, in our form, notice that these two first text box fields are used to take the inputs from the users, and the remaining two are used to show the output to the end users, right? So this particular chunk of code, the line of code we are using, is to just show the output to the user in our third text input box field, right? I hope this two lines are clear. I think are clear. Okay. So I want you guys to just implement that functionality inside our this file and just put it over here inside our on-click button functionality, the same code chunk of code. So I mean, let me just copy the stuff. I think it's not clickable. But yeah, I want you guys to just type it over here, type it and just paste it in your file, right? Let me just open up in my system. I'm not going to show the entire solution to you guys. Again, I'm not going to submit the entire solution of this particular problem statement on Canvas. I'll be just submitting this GUI file. I want you guys to work on it by referring to the code snippets I've shared in the presentation. And I think everything is straightforward. I've informed, I've put all the information. And here's another tip of calculating the working with the radio button, right? So let's come to our next part, which is dealing with the radio buttons over here. There are two radio buttons, right? High and low. And it says that high radio box is used when expected sales increase of 30% for the current year, and for the low radio box, expected sales increase of 10% for the current year. So over here, there's a small tip for you guys to work on the radio buttons. It says that the code would be very similar, but you just have to change only to accommodate the different increased percentage. So this is the formula which you're gonna use. It says increased underscore value is equal to original underscore value multiply by 1 plus increase, right? So I'm going to show you how the code looks for this implementation in JavaScript in a while. But before that, I want you guys to just try it out and in your system. Until then, let me just stop sharing the screen and I'll just show you the output. Just give me a moment. Till then, just mark your attendance. The secret code for recitation 7 is 816. I repeat, it's 816. Let me just write it somewhere over here. It's 816. I hope this is visible, right? This is the secret code for recitation 7. This, just don't forget to mark your attendance once you are done watching the lecture, right? So if I open up the solution, just give me a moment, guys. Awesome. Let me reshare my screen. Great. So here in my VS Code, I've entered that code snippet, this same code snippet over here in my VS Code, right over here, into the previous year total button on click functionality over here. You guys can see over here. the same code. I'm creating the variable total var, right? And if I click on viewing the output, let me just on port, go live. If I enter 4 and 6, it's working, right? It's showing me 10. If I write 5 millions, or let's say 10 millions for Eastern Division and 11 millions for Western Division, calculate previous year total. It's showing me 21, right? So whatever values the user is entering for the text input fields of Eastern Division and Western Division, and when the user clicks on the button of calculate previous year total, it's showing me the actual summation of the values for Eastern Division and Western Division in the text input field called previous year total sales. We are able to achieve this with the help of our JavaScript code over here, which we added inside the attribute called onClick with the help of double quotes. And this is the JavaScript code right over here. You can just add comments in JavaScript by just simply writing /, unlike in HTML, right? Adding the JavaScript code to implement the functionality just ignore my spelling typo errors of the button, something like that. Just write commands. So yeah, for the remaining radio buttons, I want you guys to work on it and put the HTML code accordingly over here inside this onClick attribute over here, right? Same thing over here. That's gonna that's for you guys to work upon on your part. I'm not gonna share the solution, but you guys can take the reference from the PPTs. Here's the tip of the radio buttons which I shared. That's the formula, and just take few moments. Just pause this video, try it. Try to form the code logic with the help of this formula, right? And at the end over here, this is the final version, right, of that particular code. It says that where high increase equal to 0.30. So this is for the high radio button, which says that there should be 30% increase, right? So we are just taking that, creating a variable called high increase, which has a default value of 0.30. And then we say that create another variable called high sales. And over here, notice that what is sales 2021? This is the ID, but this is used like that's this thing is created according to this particular code snippet over here. Notice that the ID is sales 2021. So you need to change and tweak it according to the ID which you are using in your input type element, right? So just make sure you're using the same IDs across. It should be consistent. Dot value over here. So we want to change the value, right? So 1 plus high increase according to the formula, 1 plus high increase, but over here high increase is our variable by how many or what percent we want the value to be increased, right? It's 30% in this case. And then we just want to simply output the result to our last text box field by using this particular syntax. This is the ID of last text box field dot value equal to high sales dot to fixed over here. I'm talking about this particular field. So once the user clicks on high or low, any one, right? He or she should, the end user should be able to see the value over here for the like for the total sales current year expected sales result, right? So that's for you guys to just work on it. And I think most probably this would I'll just post make an announcement. I think I'll count this thing as a part of extra TA credit 2 points, something like that. And I hope you guys are aware that there are extra 8 points for TA extra credit, right? And out of those 8 points, 4 points are for your attendance, recitation attendance, and 4 points are another extra TA credit. Like still I have not decided how to just bifurcate or take those 4 points from you guys, but I'm thinking to just make this thing as a task, and I'll just make another announcement to submit this task, your entire HTML file, including your JavaScript code, and each and everything should work. Everything, like once the user enters the values, both the text fields should have the output, right? So I'm thinking to just create a task for this, which would, I think, combine 2 points, but I'm not sure. But I'll just, if I do so, I'll just make an announcement with the deadline, mentioning it in the announcement, and make sure you guys just work on this from your end and submit it if I will be able, if I'll just make an announcement, right? So it would carry 2 points or something like that for your extra TA credit points. So I hope, I think we are done for today's recitation. This was it about how to use JavaScript and include it in our HTML file. Over here, notice that again. Yeah, this is the JavaScript code which we included over here, and same thing over here. This same thing which we looked over here, this where high grades, this code would go inside the on click for the radio button of type or ID high, and similarly for the low one, right? And I think, yeah, that's it. This, I hope like this was a fun project for you guys. Congratulations on that. You created your first working form with the help of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? And there are like couple of, like, there are so many other fun things which you guys can just create in your spare time. I would suggest just take a reference from Google, but understand how you can create your own calculator, right? How you can create a game called tic-tac-toe or anything, right? Just the basic or beginner level projects in JavaScript, HTML, and CSS will definitely help you to enhance your skills and excel in this thing in a more better way, right? So that's it for today's recitation. Let's just conclude our today's recitation. And I think regarding your assignment, if I just click on Canvas and go to assignments, you guys would be able to see the assignment over here. Assignment number 7, event-driven programming, right? So this assignment, this is the assignment for week 7, and its due date is October 27th, right? So I think we have covered like much all the stuff that would require you guys to just work on this assignment. And of course, Professor Heru has also posted stuff and resources from his end. So make sure you refer those as well. And yeah, I think regarding the exam grades, I wish you good luck and work more harder. For those who are not able to score good grades, don't worry, it was just exam 1. There's a lot of exams, a lot of opportunities which will come, right? And I think there's something called a second chance policy, right? So don't worry, and just think about like the grades if it doesn't like work in your favor, right? If you have any questions regarding that, then please feel free to reach out to me, and we can just definitely work for that during my office hours or lab support hours, right? So yeah, I think see you guys next week in our week 8, wherein we are gonna study some new exciting stuff in our JavaScript series, right? So till then, thank you, take care, bye-bye.